Jolandé Duvenage, you have had a storied career at FNB. You have run eBucks and now you're trying to run everything with the bank's very, very clever nav offering. Why are you trying to make my life more easier?
Yeah, it's a good question. Nice being here, Toby. It's always good to see you again. And yeah, obviously had quite a ride with eBucks. Loving Nav. It's really building on I think what we're doing at
Yeah,
eBucks, but it's taking it next level. Why do I want to make your life easier? Well, it's a whole team of us that are saying, I think we find ourselves as South Africans as we are survivors, but life is tough at the moment, right?
yeah.
And it is tough trying to push uphill all the time. So I think as a bank, we are really ideally positioned to look for solutions that we can almost lean in on our strengths and share it with you that can just make your life easier, right? Today, I can use your data and just play it back to you in a different format. And that should make your life easier. It
Yeah.
will empower you, right? I mean, it's so logical almost for me. And I think quite
Well,
often banks just focused inward, trying to see what they could gain from it.
I like that because I've used Nav twice in the past year or two. One was to get my new car license, it was a no-brainer. You already have all my data. I have a
Yeah.
trusted relationship with you. For a very small amount, you will go and stand in a queue for me. Thank you very much. And the other was to value my house because the city of Joburg has been putting up house values rampantly, and yet the market hasn't moved. In fact, the market's gone back. So I used NAV to value what my house was worth. And would you believe it? The bank was correct and the city of Joburg wasn't. Now, you can't say anything bad about the city of Joburg, but I was very happy because, if anyone knows what my house is worth, my bank does. They were both very easy to use services. That's exactly what I want. I'm not in a rush to buy a new car or buy a new house, but I do have pretty day to day or
Yeah.
occasional in terms of house valuation, and it was simple and easy, and I did it in my app, and it probably took me 5 minutes each time.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's about, right? It's we can really just help you navigate your life. And I think at the end of the day, we all want to feel in control, right? We want to feel empowered, we want to feel in control. And that really is what NAV is trying to help do. We want to help you navigate your life. And that could mean that we could hold your hand. Sometimes some of what you need to do, if you were, for example, wanting to buy a property or sell a property, a lot more complex, right? You don't do it all every day. You need a bit more help. But if you just want to renew your vehicle license, you just want to know that we've got your back. And I think that's the beauty of NAV. You could use this as deeply or as simply as you want. But listen, if you can sort out a few potholes that you don't need to hit in life, why not?
So the other thing I think that is a useful offering or a USP is that you already have all my data. I already have a trust relationship with you. I mean, there is a role, I think, for the bank of the future to do more than just banking for me. There's been talk for years and years where I'm going with this of having some kind of virtual pay-as-you-go online, PA. And that's the kind of functionality that I see this beginning and already offering, which is very handy to me.
I think take a really good example. For example, NAV money. I always say that that's one of the heartbeats in NAV. And NAV really says we've got Toby's data. We can see what Toby has spent. So let's play it back to him, show you what you've spent over the last 12 months in your different categories. And instead of you, if you're anything like me, I'm not an Excel spreadsheet queen, right? I know that that's the right thing a banker
And
should
I
say.
don't I don't speak maths as a first language. You had me not a Excel something.
Exactly. And for people like you and me, the bank then takes our data, categorize it, and tells us, listen, Toby, you've spent so much on your child's education, you've spent so much on groceries, etc. Now let's see what you think you should be spending. And you set up your budget and we send you the alerts throughout the month. So I always joke and say it's a way better way of doing things because by showing where you are during the month, you can then maybe put back that Lindt chocolate on the shelf and, go back to popcorn making at home, right? So,
I
yeah.
mean, it's an interesting thing that we're talking about this as not an add-on, but just as a part of what your bank should offer you. I mean, there were a time where startups like 22/7 offered this as a standalone app, and I avidly used it, and I was fascinated by those kinds of insights. Now my bank offers it to me, and my bank is my trusted relationship. I don't have to give that information to a third service
100%.
provider. That makes me happy.
And just also practically, right? There's the trust bit, and then there's you don't need to capture it. I mean, you can capture your slips every month, or you could just let us have a look back in your data. And we've spent, like a lot of time just refining that data model and making sure that it's as accurate as it can be. And we still empower you, because you can ultimately reclassify it. If you're not happy, or that you'd rather spend it on this or that, you just reclassify it. So the amount of empowerment, the amount of power and control that's in your hands, I think is really the bit that excites me, right? You take charge of your life journey. We just enable it for you.
It's true, and I did something similar actually, in a much more crude way, which was I was speaking of eBucks. I was shifting from real credit cards to virtual credit cards to go up a level, and I was looking at all of the different things I spend on. So I created separate cards for 60/60 and Woolies and Netflix and Spotify and all the cloud services I pay for, so that I would see by card what I was spending. That was my own way of quite crudely categorizing that, just to be able to track what I was spending. Online purchases, Take-A-Lot or Amazon. I listen to a lot of audiobooks through Audible and buy lots of Kindle books. So, I was curious to be able to see what all of my cloud streaming subscription costs. Yeah, I mean, even though those are already available to me under Nav.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is customers find their own hacks, but here in a way, we've almost done it for you, so you don't even need to open all those cards. You can just go to the categorization, pick up on it, and then, work it from there. And it's really helped me. I mean, we can actually see where people say to us, what, it did make me think twice about buying those pair of shoes. And we see, for example, with Nav Money users, just they are much better at saving. They're much better at managing their credit, health, all those things. So it does play through, right?
Impulse control. It's all about impulse control. I once wrote a TV review about how we live in a golden age of television. We really do. The streaming services have given us a lot of things to watch, some better than others. But the one thing I noticed in all the characters, whenever something goes wrong in a TV show, it's because of bad impulse control.
I think it's a bit like life as well. Right?
Exactly,
we
right.
kind of lean in on that.
It's like all these TV characters keep having like mini road rage episodes. So, I mean, I have a very pragmatic way of using and spending money. I can thank my very pragmatic mother and parents for that. But it's useful to have an understanding of what you spend your money on. And when I look at it every second month or so, I'm always struck at the high cost of living. Like the vast majority of my expenditure is groceries, education, paying the chemist. And I notice how that ticks up, and it's it's kind of useful to know. My mother's 95; she'll be listening to this. Hi, Mom.
Oh wow, bless her soul. That's amazing.
And she keeps saying things are so expensive, but it's just the way the world changes. Things get more expensive, and managing how you deal with that is something that they don't teach you at school. I think they do now, but they certainly didn't when I was at school.
And I think that's one of the reasons why NAV is so close to my heart. It's like a really meaningful job that I do every day. Like, I'm very aware that South Africans typically haven't grown up around dinner tables where there was a pragmatic mum or dad or aunt or uncle that helped you on that life journey, right? And it's hard to figure out stuff. I can even see now with my university-going student, this type of stuff that she asks me, I almost go like, hey, but how do you not know that? But then I think, again, yep, nobody has told you, right? And I think that, for example, from an NAV perspective, we've really gone deep on education. Like, we set up really cool coaches across all the themes, all 8 themes, right?
Yeah.
And we've made it clever in the way that you and me, we're all the same. We don't have time to spend hours now to go and master, all these topics. So it's all in small podcasts, bite-sized chunks, or there's fun quizzes, but it's got 5 questions because you know what? Just get those 5 things. And if you get that, you're already going to see the lift. So we've been quite deliberate around helping people. And it is because I think in this country, education is key.
Are you able to track that people are watching those and picking those up, and you can see the interaction? You obviously won't publicize that, but I'd be very interested to see how people do that. I mean, I had this conversation once, to your point about, not sitting around the dinner table talking about how to manage your finances. I don't think that ever got explained to me, but then I went to varsity and I had to manage my however many R100 a month for food and other things. And you kind of learn very quickly the hard way. You make a few mistakes, your parents bail you out once or twice, and then you're kind of on your own with life. Like, how do you pick up those life skills? Where do you get them from? And this guy was telling me, he was telling me he was an Arsenal football fan. And I was like, that means you were born in that area of London. And he was, no, my father always watched it. What team did your father watch? And I said to him, nothing. My father, on Saturdays, we went to arty things. We went to art galleries. My parents weren't sports orientated in the slightest. I don't think once in my life I ever walked in on my father watching sports. So to that point, how did I learn about sports at school? So it's the kind of thing I think, and I hope from what I understand, kids now learn at school how to manage your expenses, how to manage your monthly income versus outcome. But clearly it's a useful life skill that everybody should be learning.
Yeah, and I think that's why even on we're busy now with some of the youth stuff as well. And again, that realization that we need to start it at that level is that education bit. But we've really also learned you can't flood people with content, right? It as freely available as content is. It's really picking those core gems that will create the lift for people, and we do see that people engage with it. They sometimes also bounce in and bounce out, and then we can see those that are diligently going from 1 to 10, and others that just come and look at a specific chapter, So that is actually why we've decided we can't wait for you to come and engage with the coach. We actually have to put that nudge in the moment. So when we play your data back at you, we'll put the 1, 2, or 3 nudges there. Because now you see if you see that your credit health isn't good, right? You want to know in that moment what you could do different. So then we show you, okay, here's your 7 indicators. These are all green, but those 2, that's where you're red. Okay, now let's help you on those 2. And I think that for me is way more powerful than trying to let you cover the whole encyclopedia of knowledge in one app experience. Our job is really just to empower you. I often refer to it as when you have access to somebody's data, you need to pick your role. Do you want to be the big brother or the big mother? And I really think always about my mum and how she would have nurtured me and helped me and guided me. And that I think is if you could get that right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly, for example, with that vehicle license. So we've got over 1 million cars in the digital garage, right?
Yeah.
So it's really cool because now we can do the necessary engagements with the relevant entities to get your vehicle license to your door delivered. But at the same time, I don't know how you are, but it's just so helpful for me when that message comes through and say, listen, Jolandé, remember, you need to renew that license in 45 days. Right?
Exactly. I love that. I mean, I have calendar entries that I've made of my own, 3 different ones. One that goes off 3 different times, to
You're
remind me.
You're pretty organized. I'm quite impressed, eh?
I'm a high-functioning, lazy person.
Okay.
So I've learned the hard way, like getting stopped coming out of ORT and a traffic cop stopping me and saying, sure, hey, you're lucky. Your driver's license got 2 more days left before it expires. I'm like, right. This time, put a diary entry. So speaking of cars in the digital garage, I remembered another very useful time when I sold my old car, my old Mini. It was fantastic. I had a valuation. That was a very good starting point for selling the Mini. So,
Because again,
that's very helpful without me even realizing it was an available tool to me. I was like trying to look through all those car websites. Thank you for saving me from the car websites.
yes, I think what we're trying to do is we obviously don't want you to sell for too little, and we want to help a buyer not to buy for too much, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a sweet spot, right? And again, if we give you that free value estimate, you're empowered. You still make the decision before you list it onto a NAV marketplace or you engage with a dealer. But again, you come from a position of, you're informed, you're empowered, you can run your life better. So that for us really is the thing. Can we put you in a position where you are better off? So, and I think that's why I'm quite excited, because you can then list it, but then you get to the maintenance of that vehicle, right? That's a whole different chapter now, because there are so many things to consider when you look after that vehicle. So, from my side, I'm
telling me, motor plan is more confusing than a cell phone contract. It is structured in such a ways that it's just like cell phone contracts. You just can't make sense of it, or certainly my brain doesn't make sense of it.
Yeah, and I think the bigger challenge, Toby, is a lot of South Africans are out of motor plan, right?
Yeah.
And what do they do? And again, if you go onto, for example, NavCar, you'll see there's opportunity to just take out the extended warranty motor plan. So again, those are things that you can choose whether you want it or not, but hey, then there are no surprises.
But I'll run out in a year or two. I must go have a look at that.
There are obviously some customers that just don't want to take out insurance, but they often take out then the scratch and dent products, this extended warranty, and then obviously the guys that want insurance, again, it's there, it's all seamlessly in one place. You don't need to go and search around. So I think really cool. And then what I really love is Marketplace. So why is Marketplace a really cool solution is, okay, so we know many people are out of motor plan, and we know that, they can't always afford to go back into a dealer environment to service, but obviously, we do say that's great because you still know the quality of that. But then again, how, for example, on NAV Marketplace, do we give you access to service providers that have been vetted by Westbank that you can then use to service your vehicle,
I think that's great. I mean, it's I had a friend who used to be a second-hand car salesman, and what I understood about the system is that they have a trust relationship, circle of trust, cone of silence, circle of trust, and they don't screw each other over. And if you find someone to deal with that you trust, then you won't get screwed over, I mean, I'm being a little bit crude about it, but actually that's really great to know that it's a service provider who, if they, take advantage of me, have a much bigger thing to lose. I'm sorry to seem so pessimistic about humanity.
I was about to say, sure.
But it's like they have a relationship of their own to maintain. That's an advantage.
Look, I'm driving an older Landy, so I mean, for me, it's really just great getting access to a trusted service provider because, they are gorgeous cars, and I drive them for a reason, but, it's quite a bill if you need to foot that.
I'm telling you, my mother always talks about, the grudge purchase of servicing your car and how you have to repeatedly do it. And I suppose it's just that she was so pragmatic that she instilled that kind of stuff in us without us actually ever sitting down and discussing it. It's like, my father would always talk to me about money, as would, I suppose, every Jewish father.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I think that's why for a Jewish father like that, your dad most probably would have liked the idea if he could renew his vehicle license for 69 Rand for a service, the service and delivery to your door.
We just ran a story. It was our best story of the week about FNB dropping the price of license disc renewals. But that's quite a thing, right?
Yeah.
To on a website like Stuff that is filled with gadgets, that the story for a week that's part of the reason we did this interview. We were like, this must be something people want to know more about.
Yeah, look, we'll humbly take the compliment, but I think it is, again, when we thought about it, we just said, look, South Africans love their cars, right?
Yeah.
We are known to love their cars.
Yeah.
But again, those type of things quite often are a grudge purchase in your month. And if you already are having a tough time, knowing that you don't then need to take your precious time and go and stand in the queue, but you could just be reminded and then, just give us the go ahead. Hey, and you can pay for it, not only using your rands, but you can pay
Love
for it
I
using
love
your
it.
e-bucks.
Please, can you sort this out for driver's license? I'm
We're getting a lot of requests now.
coming up for review, and I like to think I'm a high-functioning, lazy person.
So we'll put you down as the guinea pig, right? Yeah.
Done. On that happy note, Jolandé Duvenage, head of NAV for FNB, thank you very much for this interview, and thank you for renewing my car license for me every year.
Yeah, really cool to have seen you again, and thanks for the opportunity.
A pleasure. Thank you very much. You have been listening to Stuff, the podcast about everything you want to know about everything you want. Subscribe and like us on any platform where you get your podcast. Thank you for listening. My name is Toby Shapshak. I'm the lowly editor-in-chief of Stuff. The executive producer is Sally Hudson. Hans Baumgarten is our director of audio. And you can read new things every day on stuff.co.za. Thanks for listening.